All right, all right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. It's your buddy CJ here, talking about all things automotive industry, all the things that automotive enthusiasts are interested in. We're talking about cars, new cars, classic cars, exotic cars, all the things that automotive enthusiasts are most interested in. We talk about it right here. This is the place to be. Real gearhead talk. We got real gearhead talk on this podcast. And guys, I am just thrilled that you're all here. Welcome back to all of my subscribers. So grateful for each and every one of you. Guys, if you're not a subscriber, please give me a like and subscribe. Leave me those comments. I'll respond to all the comments I can. It's just been fantastic over the past month or so as we built this channel together and having the opportunity to just talk about the things that we love as automotive enthusiasts and to do it together. So tonight, we're actually going to be talking about some automotive industry stuff, guys. And I think this stuff should be of interest to you. I know it's of interest to me. And Automotive News recently released the results of its annual dealership salary survey. So we're going to kind of peel back and open up the curtains to take a look at what salaries look like in the automotive retail industry, the dealership industry in the United States actually look like across different functions, okay, across different roles. I think it's really just fascinating stuff. And we're going to talk about some of the market dynamics as well. Coming from the survey, again, the source is Automotive News, and this is their dealership salary survey. A couple things to note about this that are super important. One, the survey results that I'm about to show you are based on self-reported salaries, bonus, commission numbers from 1,000 plus employees of dealerships. So these are not audited results. This wasn't a scientific analysis, if you will. This was a self-reported survey. So that's important to note. It's not like a large sample of dealerships all uploaded their audited official salaries for employees in a very methodical, quantitative manner. No, this was more what I'll say sort of qualitative, where survey-based, if you're working at the dealership in Florida and I'm working at the dealership in Massachusetts, we receive the survey, we report our salaries, but it's either accurate or it isn't. And it's either representative of typical average real world or it's not. So you kind of have to take these numbers with a grain of salt, but I think they're interesting indicators. Okay, so that's one assumption. And again, this is coming right from Automotive News and their dealership salary survey. Something else to be aware of. The average years of experience from these self-reported salaries, the average years experience from the employee, the dealership employee, was 27 plus years, guys. So these are people at the peak of their career on average, okay? These are people who've been in the industry for at least a couple of decades on average, okay? And that's important to note also. Your results may vary, and it may take a very long or a significant material runway to achieve some of these salary numbers. So let's keep going. The other thing that I think is important to note about the Automotive News dealership salary survey is that 78% of the responses were from people in management positions. That's important. I'll say it again, 78%, nearly 80% of the respondents who were self-surveyed on their salary and compensation were in managerial positions. So again, all of these things tend to skew the numbers, I claim, looking at a lot of surveys and analyses like this over the years. Guys, we have fun. Whether we're talking about cars, we're talking about automotive industry stuff, we're talking about studies like this, we have fun on this channel. So I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. So guys, let's take a look at this. As you know, on this channel, we look at things together and we have an absolute blast doing it. And that tradition and trend will continue. Okay, guys, what are we looking at here? So this first chart from the survey kind of breaks it down by function and position area. So, dare I say, categories of roles. You got corporate roles such as president, area manager, administrative assistant up top. That second row would be dealership executives, such as the principal, the GM, the CFO, the COO. Then we've got variable operations. That's basically sales. Okay, what we're looking at there are sales positions, including the finance and insurance that support sales. So, again, it's driven by those individual transactions on a sales front, moving vehicles, moving units. That's variable. Fixed operations are also revenue generating, but it's things like service, parts, and collision. So they're not necessarily bound to vehicle sales and moving units, but they are indeed revenue generators. They should be. And then, of course, you've got administrative. This would be your overheads, such as office management, controller, accounts payable. So generally speaking, what are we looking at here? If you look at average salaries, and I think the big headline for this survey is that average salary is around 200,000 based on this survey. But I put an asterisk on that because I think that's a headline grabber. And indeed, that is the result of this analysis. I don't want to say it isn't. But when you break into the reports, the data, you notice a couple of things. First things first, what they are categorizing here as salary. So, for example, let's take a look right in the middle of the chart. Variable operations. This is sales. The average salary is reported at $188,000, almost $189,000, right? Now, notice the little pie chart, third row, all the way on the right, there's a little pie chart. 65% of that $189,000 is based on commission or bonuses. Let me say it again. That $189,000 salary reported in this study is actually not a base salary. That's base salary plus commissions or bonuses. So if 65% of that $189,000 average is bonus, you do the math. That more than cuts that in half. Okay, so you're looking at less than 100K as an average base salary in sales, and then heavy dependence on that commission and bonus, which makes sense in a sales position. But it's very important to note. Also of interest to note is that the number in red, what's the trend in this survey? And looking back at 2022, sales compensation is down over 10%. That's important. Okay? Because I think what you have to understand, guys, and I think what we need to understand, and certainly folks working in this industry today are realizing it, is that there was a bit of a hangover from COVID in the pandemic. You know, during the pandemic, people particularly in the retail automotive industry, particularly in sales and executive positions, they rode the lightning. They captured lightning in a bottle. Say it any way you wish. They were offering a product, used cars and new cars, that were scarce, that were in heavy demand, driven by the low cost of money, low interest rates, all the supply chain constraints. It was a feeding frenzy. These guys were selling a product that sold itself, and prices were inflated. So your average price per unit was up significantly. Your profitability per unit was up. So that had an amazing windfall impact. I don't want to say it inflated salaries and total compensation, but it inflated total compensation. Real talk. You know, sales commissions were up. Dealership profits were up. So presidents, dealership executives, general managers, sales managers, sales associates saw a significant spike in income. But the headline here is also not just that, you know, these are nice, chunky, fulsome total compensation packages, no doubt, but that they're trending downward. They're trending downward. Sales is off. That's one of the key conclusions out of this survey. You know, and I think things are normalizing, and I think that's very natural. Now it's 2024, and supply chain is getting back to a normalized state, if there is such a thing. Cars are hitting the lots. Okay, the average time on the dealership lot is increasing. There's now inventory on hand in certain segments. Okay, for new vehicles, and they're sitting. What does that mean? That means dealers are going to have to incentivize those new cars. What does that mean for used cars? That means that they're going to have to do something about these used cars that aren't selling themselves necessarily, and those units are sitting. So there's a delicate balance, you see, around new inventory, used inventory, moving units, maintaining profitability. And all of these various factors, such as the cost of money, the interest rates. Let's take it back to salaries. All of these things are detriments to variable income in this industry. So we're seeing some of that manifest itself in this very interesting survey from Automotive News. A couple other things to note here. Salaries are up in certain areas. Listen, fixed operations, service, parts, and collision. Salaries are up 5%. Go team. I do think that, again, part of the COVID hangover, there was a race for talent as these dealerships grew, okay? As the industry saw this explosive growth and success, they needed, obviously, more operational folks in departments such as service, parts, collision. You need subject matter experts, technicians, leaders, folks who can actually manage and execute all of these functions, highly skilled technical people. Okay. What do we do to retain them? We're going to have to compensate them. Otherwise, they're going to go across the street. Otherwise, they're going to walk. And I think, as a bit of that lag, even if there's been a bit of a downturn in sales, the volume is still up. Population is up. People, bought a bunch of cars over the past few years, right? People are getting back on the road and traveling more and going, the past couple of years have been going back to school, back to their road trips, back to vacations. Okay, this is generating a lot of business in the automotive industry, all of these things for functions such as service, parts, collision. Okay, so we need to retain that talent at the individual dealerships. Compensation is up. Okay, administrative roles, same thing. Office managers, controllers, accounts payable. In order to keep up with the operational swell, we need more operational and administrative personnel, and we've got to compensate them. The other thing I want to tell you is hours. While, for example, a president, a general manager, you can be looking at $200,000 plus per year, up to $300,000 for a GM, for example, more. But you're going to work for it. You're going to work for a $200,000 total compensation package in this industry. The averages here, you're looking at 50 plus hours per week. A lot of these people probably working 5 to 6 days a week. If you look at the average American works about 38 hours per week. Look at the results of this survey. The average employee here making a nice healthy salary is well above that, is above 45 hours a week. Highly compensated individuals in sales and operations, they're all over 50 hours a week. So while these salaries are healthy, they can be highly intense. Work-life balance can be a challenge. And then commission and bonus makes up a large percentage of the highest compensated individuals. Look at corporate roles, president, area managers, so on and so forth. They're making at least 30% of their compensation is based on bonus or commission. If you get into certain dealership executive roles, such as dealership principal, general manager, the CFO, the COO, these leaders are making up to 40 to 50% of their total compensation in commission. So whereas it's reported here as salary, that $316,000 average is for 2023 is not base salary. Almost 50% of that is bonus or commission, guys. That's important to know. And this is a very dynamic industry right now, and it's an industry in flux. So I think, what do I think? I think numbers are going to continue to normalize and flatten a bit for sales. It's not done adjusting yet. Okay. And some of the things that, and I'll switch the view here before we continue with the commentary. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. Let's take a look at another graphic here. And this is from the Automotive News Dealership Salary Survey. What we're looking at here, guys, are actually individual roles and what their total compensation packages look like. So again, I think here, if you look at general manager, based on the results of the Automotive News survey, general managers are averaging over $300,000 a year. But again, important to know that that number is slightly off, about 3% off what it was in 2022. And more than 50% of the average GM salary or total compensation package is based on commission and bonus. Super important to note. So it's not a $320,000 base salary. It's actually about half that. So you figure about $160,000 or so base salary, and 50% of that, another 160K, is incremental, is based on performance, and it's either going to be commission or bonus based on hitting your numbers. The other thing to know is that, a general manager at the peak of his or her career is going to be working 50 plus hours a week. The metric here for this average general manager is about 55 hours per week, which means that some of those general managers are working a lot more hours than that. This is probably a 6 to 7 day a week job. Your phone's always on, okay? Some of them might be working a little bit less, but I actually think that's kind of a modest number. The other thing, if you look at here, the vehicle sales roles, right in the middle of the chart, you can see an $116,000 average compensation package for 2023 for someone in a vehicle sales role, but that's off about 15%. 15% less total compensation for vehicle sales folks based on the Automotive News survey for 2023. And take a look at the pie chart. This is really telling. 71% of that $116,000 compensation package was commission or bonus. So again, you sing for your supper. This is a sales role, and no doubt it doesn't surprise us that it's heavily determined based on commission and bonus, but 71% is big. That means that's like a $40,000 a year base salary, something like that, plus all the rest, 71% of that 116K coming by way of commissions and bonuses. So you really rely on it, and you're working a lot of hours, guys. You're working more than 50 hours a week. Okay. So you can see pre-owned manager, general sales manager, business development center, finance, and insurance. All of these roles that are variable, they're based on the number of units sold. They're really derivatives of sales. Any role that's a derivative of car sales is off. Compensation is off, anywhere from 7% all the way up to 15%. That's a big and significant variation. It's not like numbers were flat or they were up slightly or off slightly. No, they were down significantly. So I do think this is an indicator of a continued and, not even gradual, a significant and steepening normalization as dealer inventory returns. And I do think that certain salespeople, while they captured lightning in a bottle during COVID, are going to see a normalization of their paycheck. That's just reality. That is just reality. Okay. Again, an interesting job, an interesting role for anyone who's looking. Sometimes people say, "How do I find a career that offers me upward mobility in an area that I love, that I'm passionate about, that can be fun and exciting?" Well, I claim automotive retail sales could check all those boxes. Now, on the flip side, it could be high stress. Sales roles inherently are numbers driven, and there's going to be a heavy focus on hitting your numbers, exceeding your numbers, doing better than last month, making sure we're continuing to drive for revenue targets and profitability. It can be stressful. Okay, it can be cutthroat and all those things. Plus, you're putting in heavy hours. This is definitely one of those jobs where when a lot of people are off, you're working. Saturdays are big days at the dealerships. Dealerships can be open Sundays, Thursday nights, notorious. Dealerships are open late. Now, granted, hopefully they have enough staff that can kind of rotate it around. But when you had too many sales staff, next thing you know, that internal competition thing, how do you maintain these total compensation packages for sales personnel when you've got a large population of sales personnel that are all fighting over a reduced population of buyers and less profitability per unit. General managers, presidents, and executives, they don't like to see their numbers go down. That's really bad. And granted, there are macro issues in the economy and in the industry right now that may build perfect rationale for that. It's still not a good thing. So stress level and expectations will be high and will continue to be high in a role like that. Anything supporting vehicle sales, unit sales, business growth, development, operations in that context, you get up to a management position, the stakes are higher as well. So long hours, heavy expectation around growth, profitability, and also the more you move up the chain, particularly in sales, you'll be looking at variable commissions and bonuses as a huge part of your compensation. So something to consider. In 2022, the NADA reported that sales income was up 37% in automotive retail sales. 37%. How many times in your career do you see your income go up 37%? Not a lot, and it's not sustainable. Let's be real. So again, thank you, COVID, right? Was really good for the automotive industry. Sales managers, specifically, according to the NADA, they saw a 48% increase in salary, and general managers saw about the same, like 40 to 50% increase in compensation for sales managers and GMs. So again, that's like career lightning. That's lightning in a bottle, and it's not sustainable. So we can expect a continued normalization in addition to what I claim is an industry in flux. I'm not saying it's chaos, but it is transforming. The automotive industry, particularly the retail sector and other aspects of it, is transforming. And what worked 10 years ago is not necessarily going to work in the next 10 years for success, and the models are going to continue to shift. So I think these are things to be aware of if you're contemplating, if you're a young up and coming professional thinking about getting into this industry. I think you got to go in, as we like to say around here, eyes wide open. I do think it can be, it can be enticing to look at some of these salaries and say, wow, I want to make $200,000, $300,000 a year. Yes, I understand that you do, but understand that this survey represents people at the peak of their career. A lot of managers, this survey was manager heavy. And again, the average respondent had like 27 years experience. So it's a bit skewed. Your journey in the first 3, 5, 8 years of your experience in the retail automotive industry is not going to look like this. For some, it will, because you'll be overachievers and you'll kill it, but not for everybody. There'll be a long runway to get to that $200,000 salary that's touted in this survey. So I think it's super important to know that. Guys, another aspect of this survey that I thought was interesting was the impact that education does or maybe does not have on salary. I thought it was kind of refreshing to see that based on the Automotive News Dealership Salary Survey for 2023, the difference between, for example, high school graduates' average salary, total compensation, I should say, versus someone with a university undergraduate degree is not huge. It's like, what is it, about 10%? If you look at the top line there, high school graduate, the average based on the respondents to this survey, total compensation for the industry was about $207,000 per year. For someone with an undergraduate college degree, the average was $224,000. So it is higher, okay, but it's not that much higher. So one of the wonderful things that I love about the retail automotive industry is that you don't have to go and get an advanced college degree, a graduate degree, undergraduate degree even. It'll help. No doubt it'll help. And some of the senior leadership positions you can fast track, no doubt, if you have certain credentials and certain degrees. But to reach a sweet spot in your career of financial success, you can get yourself pretty far along and upward mobile in terms of total compensation without a college degree. Whether you go the technical route, overall operations, we talked about service parts, or you could go sales. and kind of sing for your supper and make it what it is. And based on, 50 to 70% of your compensation being based on commissions and bonuses, go get it. You don't need a college degree for that. So I thought that was really important and maybe refreshing for some of our younger up and coming or transitioning professionals. The automotive retail industry could be a viable option. Okay. Having said that, you're looking at some long hours. You're going to be looking at some nights and weekends, probably, depending on the nature of your role, whether you're in sales or not. And it can be an intense environment. So, guys, that's about it for this episode. I kind of wanted to come on here and talk about the Automotive News Dealership Salary Survey for 2023. I thought there were some really interesting data points. Hopefully, you found it interesting. Leave me your comments. Let me know what you think. Do you work in the industry? What do you think about these numbers? Are they consistent with what you're seeing? For those that just may have a different experience, share that as well. Guys, listen, give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I love all of my subscribers, and I'm so grateful for you. For visitors, you're certainly welcome, and I love you guys too. Leave me your comments. Give me a like and subscribe, guys. I hope you had a good time with this episode. I will see you on the next one. Peace.